The quote of the day is doing what you love is freedom, loving what you do is happiness. I think this is very important. In life, you need to have some kind of purpose, you need to have some kind of objectives. And I think the pursuit of happiness is really good. The thing about happiness is it's not something that you feel constantly 24/7. Happiness is things that you receive sometimes, that you provoke, that you organize, and it's always a very important to have this. So this week should be a week of happiness, a week of where you have the opportunity to thank someone. And in truth, there's always a lot of people that we have to thank for all the good things that are happening to us. So to me, I'm not born in the United States. I very much embrace this concept of thanksgiving, is giving thanks to someone. And there's a lot of people that have to thank. And so I'm going to take this opportunity of this week to purposively and consciously go on and thank them for whatever they did and have maybe some little gift for them and all that. There's obviously the traditional thanksgiving as the dinner, but there should be this concept, I think, of being able to think about those people that exist, maybe the people who passed away as well, that have been great to you. And so going back to marketing, what is marketing? Is the delivery of customer satisfaction. You delivering it to who you're delivering it to. This satisfaction is very important, and that's the concept of segmentation, targeting, and positioning. You can't be delivering it to anyone or everyone. You have to decide who is it that you're giving it to. So the opportunities is very much the pillars, the direction that your business is going to take. So you have to look for these opportunities, and you want them to be strategic, which means that they're not short-term, that they're actually long-term. The just noticeable difference is exactly what you're going to do in order to be more successful in adjusting to those opportunities. One little parenthesis, because I've mentioned this to you a number of times, and it happens to me regularly, but I wanted to share it with you. So this student called Zana Zanian actually contacted me this week and said, "Hi, Professor Vigneron. I hope you're doing well and having a great semester. I was your marketing student during the 2020 pandemic. I'm in the process of interviewing for some exciting job opportunities, one of which is a sales operation representative role at United Talent Agencies. Other interviews and application in the coming weeks will also include some advertising agencies and digital marketing agencies in Los Angeles. I'm hoping to be able to provide your contact information as a reference for my job applications. I find my interviews go very well and I emphasize the experience I had in the Wells Fargo Center for Small Business Consulting, where my peers and I provided business consulting and marketing strategy solution for the client of the semester in 2020, and also for the summer, because she was a student I had twice. If you're available for a call on my behalf, I would be very grateful and so forth. Thank you very much, Diana." This, I told you, happens very often, and that's what should happen. Is students eventually graduate and they look for a job, and maybe a better job than the one that they had as a student, and then they have to show off to the people who are interviewing them, looking at their resume and so forth. And I tell the students, be careful. One of the key things that you may want to consider in talking and putting forward is the consulting that you may have done, for example, in my class. Not everyone hears me, not everyone understands me, but the students that do, they see a huge difference when they have a job interview and they start talking about the consulting services. So in that situation, you're doing a consulting services for Wiener Schnitzel. It's a large company, and now you have the chief marketing officer who's coming to you, and you're going to try to write a paper, and hopefully you get a good grade, and hopefully you understand what you're doing, and hopefully this is something that you can use in the future. In fact, if you're in business, that's something that you really use in the future. But it's just me saying, and who am I? I tell you that the students who use it tends to do better. And here, a very fresh, I mean, this is from the 15th of November, this is from 5 days ago, a student from 3 years ago writing me saying that she is using it and it makes a huge difference. So I didn't want to quote her, or I could have removed their name, but then it could have been like a fake information. And so I just asked her, is it okay if I show this to the students? And then she responded on the 18th of November, 2 days ago. Thank you very much. Yes, you can share my email with the class. I remember hearing similar messages from former students. It was very encouraging to hear, and I love for other students to have that encouragement from me. How wonderful, how grateful students can be. I mean, not everyone is grateful on earth, and not everyone is thankful. And there's a lot of people who are bitter and somewhat insane and stressed, and they don't do very much for one another. But there are some that do. And I would say in the long run, these are the people that do very well. And here's an example of Diana from 3 years ago that just came forward and say, hey, you worked for me, but I'm just telling you, you do what you want. It's your life. But I'm just telling you, the students who have done this have made a huge difference for themselves, a massive difference for themselves. But not everybody hears it. So I'm just saying it, sort of proving it by using someone else as a reference. And this is not from the 1970s. This is from 2 or 3 days ago. Pretty impressive. Anyone is inspired by this? I hope some of you are inspired and realizing that in life, you can be passive or you can be active. And when you're active, you tend to do a little bit better. So doing this class is 3 units. It's a grade. It's to get graduation. But really, you're getting a business degree. So you should be a business person. And this is a real business project that you're working on. That's not only going to get you a good grade if you do it well, but it's going to serve you because you may be getting a better job and maybe you're making more money and maybe being a happier person. So someone was making a message in the chat about the possibility of getting extra points. So all related to this, as you know, as I manage the Wells Fargo Center, which is the center that's finding clients to give it to professors to work with their students and create some amazing opportunities. I would like to get more clients. I would like to get even better clients. And there's no better source to get great clients and great referrals, but the students who are actually working on this kind of projects. There's quite a number of students that come forward and say, oh, I would like to participate by giving you the name of a client. Can I do that? Of course you can do that. Not only you can do this, but I will give you 1% extra credit. So it's 101, 102, 103, 104. For each client that you give me, there is a real client that you actually have talked about this program, which is working for small businesses. It doesn't have to be a billion-dollar companies. We work for small businesses. I just have a few big companies now and then to show the world that we're not just working for startups and single-owned businesses. We can also, the students are good enough to work for companies that are far away and massive, as much as the local brewery run by 3 people. So it's important for me to reward you for giving these clients. But at the end of the day, you're doing a good deed anyway, because you know that we're going to take very good care of these people and they don't have to pay a dime, which is quite extraordinary. And that's sort of the problem, is when we talk to these people and we tell them it's going to be great, they don't believe us, that the students absolutely love it and get better jobs by learning the real thing. They sort of understand that, and that we're going to have them ask them nothing. They really don't think it's possible. There's not such a thing as a free lunch on this planet, but this is sort of a free lunch, and it's just remarkable. And so you will be the people that will have the opportunity to mention this and help someone else and be rewarded for it. It's very simple. What is the name of the business? At least you should know the name. Who's the name of the person that you talk to, and that you can confirm that you've talked to them and that they are happy to have a discussion. It doesn't mean, because sometimes they don't know what's going on and they trust you and they still want to talk to us and see if it's legitimate and it's not a scam or something. But at least they're interested, at least. And some phone number or some email or whatever is the preferred way to be for these people to be contacted. And you just email me and they will be entered as your name on your contribution. And if these are real clients that respond to our email and phone and are genuinely interested at least to talk to us to see if we can help them, then you will get rewarded. It's that simple. Do they have to be for profit? No. Do they have to be big? No. Do they have to be local? No, but students prefer to work with local companies. Do they have to make a profit or solvable? And it could be an ID. Well, students don't really like to work with an ID. They don't really like to work with startups. I've done this for 28 years, and they don't really like to work with startups. So if it's a startup, we'll take it. Maybe you'll get credit as well, but the reality is students don't really like, it's even harder to work with the startup because there's even less information. So in general, we like to work for organizations that have existed maybe for 2, 3 years and have done something, and they may be struggling, and that's okay. Or they may even be doing well or thinking they're doing well. We can always help them to do better. I don't know of any other questions you may have. Just make sure that you've talked to them. That's very important because we don't want you to send us just a random name. So I repeat, it can't be random names. It has to be businesses that you have engaged in some conversation and they are sort of heard about us through you, so they can trust us to go further. So I will send you an email to remind you of this, and that way you can respond to me as fast as possible. In fact, I don't know if you remember, but in September I was asking if anyone wanted to be my assistant. So my assistant actually comes from this class, and she will be the one. So she's a student in the class that will be contacting these businesses and reviewing them. And so that's exciting if you send us information, so that way we can work on help more people. So going back to the product mix, we discussed what was a product, and then most importantly, we discussed what was a service, which is the opposite of a good because it's intangible, inseparable, it has variability and perishability. We talked about the three core actual augmented level of a product. We talked about the full definition of a product being convenience, shopping, specialty, and so we talked about the product line in terms of developing the width, the depth, and the overall length of the product mix. We talked about the importance of packaging because people buy more than just the product, they also buy the packaging. But now we all have to talk about branding and the different branding issues. So branding is the name, the term, the symbol, or the design, or the combination of these, which helps to identify the products and the seller, and therefore to differentiate these products and these sellers with the other brands. Brands are very important, and oftentimes people don't buy a product, but they buy a brand more than a product, because there's the benefit of what the function of the product is, but also the benefit of what the image of the brand is. So for a consumer, a brand is a set of expectations. You make expectation based on what you think this brand is associated with. You reduce risk because the non-famous brands or the product that have no brand seem more risky than the famous brand, than the brand that is the most popular brand. You also make it easier for people to decide. They buy the brand that they know. They buy the brand that is the #1 sold brand in America. So it's a single, maybe brand make it sometimes a single definition of to help people buy. Brands have different meanings, and so people buy sometimes the meanings more than the functional value of the brand. And this brand has an identity, which when you consume, you may be borrowing the identity of the brand. Now, what the brands do for the company is it simplifies the product handling, because you could have multiple brands for multiple markets. It helps you with your accounting and inventory. It gives you some protection beside maybe the patents that you have for the product, or the different designs that you have, and the intellectual property that you have for the product. It also gives protection because now your brand is separated from others from a legal standpoint. It creates brand loyalty because people know that brand and they keep buying the same brand because they feel that it's satisfactory and there's no reason to change. And it is in the long run becomes a competitive advantage because people will buy that brand versus that brand, and every brand is different and maybe used by different people on different occasions, and something more special about that brand, and that becomes a competitive advantage. So brands are everywhere, and brands have meanings. Maybe Volvo means safety, BMW driving, Mercedes engineering, and so forth. So the brand is very related to the concept of positioning. Positioning is, what is the meaning of the brand? Is this brand more or less likable? Can this brand be used for other products? So you sell the brand for toothpaste. Now could you sell this brand also for perfume or makeup? And so there's transferability. Does it adapt well? So connected to the transferability is you have this concept that it could be used for other type of products and adapt. Can it be protected, and can it be protected in different areas of the world? Can it make it easier for people to remember the brand? And remember, when they want the product, they think of the brand. You know, I want a fridge and I want the best fridge, and then you think Sub-Zero is the best fridge. Oh, I want an expensive fridge, and then you think of an expensive brand for a fridge like Kenwood. So a product category is connected with a brand, and a brand is connected to a product category. All of this culminates to the concept of brand equity. What is brand equity? It's the sum of the value of a brand from the perspective of its image, its quality, and its awareness and its loyalty. So brand awareness is the first level of brand equity. Is, do I know this brand? Have I heard of that brand? Brand association is the level of meanings associated with the brand. So too many association is not a good idea. The idea is more to have one strong association and keep repeating that this association, like I was just mentioning, Volvo is safety and BMW is driving. And so those association is very important because people will buy this product based on the brand and based on what they believe the association to be true with that particular product. The brand quality is a spectrum from lowest quality to highest quality. The more the brand is famous, the more the people perceive this brand is bought by many people, the more they perceive that it's higher quality. So having the higher quality is a higher level than the brand association. I mean, brand association oftentimes are part of the quality. Maybe brand association of one brand is luxury, another brand association is speed, another brand association is a good smell. But these are the specific association, but the overall association that the brand should have is the spectrum of quality. And you try to have specific association and a specific overall vision of the level of quality the brand has. Brand loyalty is the highest level of brand equity. It's the aim of any brand to have is to be recognized by a group of people that continuously buy this brand. Not only they buy the brand, but they recommend the brand to others and they influence others in buying that brand. What this brand loyalty does is it creates a group of people that you can sell new products. You're making a new product under your brand. That's a minimum group of people that you think will buy because they are fans. They're passionate about your brands. They will eventually also influence other people. So they create the snowball effect, the spillover effect that starts rolling this brand into a market. What's important about this is that when you talk to the distribution network doesn't want to do anything that is too hard. So the distribution network only going to sell the brand that is the easiest one to sell, the one that people are going to come. So to prime and convince the distribution networks, there's not too many ways, but one way is how much advertising are you spending? And if you spend a lot of advertising, therefore I'm going to take a chance in selling your brand. However, the other one, and the more tangible one and the more objective one is how many people are already been buying your brand in the past. So that's an indicator of most likely of how many people will be buying your brand in the future. So this is called a trade leverage. It's a leverage in order to get the trade to work with you. So the trade are the distributors, but the trade are also the suppliers. So if you have a famous brand, the suppliers will give you the best innovations to have with your product and add to your brand because they know they want to play with the winning team. And if you have a big brand, you have a winning team. Now, when you're looking at the product portfolio and the usage of brands, is you have different solutions. Either you use the brand of the manufacturer, or you use the brand of just the branded product. So the manufacturer brand is Procter & Gamble, and then the specific brand that you use for the soap is called Ivory, and therefore you separate the two and you don't use the manufacturer brand. Or you could use no brand, and in that situation you have no brand equity. So some brands use the same brand for everything that they sell, and so Philips is a very good example. The issue is having one brand for every product category, which product categories may be very different, so there's a high level of diversification. In that situation, you take the risk that the brand may not have the same image or may not have the same perceived quality in the different product category. And you may be top 5 in one product category, like making electric toothbrush, but you may be top 5 to 10 for making other, like a vacuum cleaner or something like this. So using the same brand is eventually diluting a little bit the overall brand specific category expertise by having sort of a brand used in so many different things. It looks like this brand of of doing everything, and therefore it could dilute. However, from a financial perspective, it's quite helpful because you don't have to Philips, let's say if it was a manufacturer and then come up with different brands for the different product category, it you use just Philips for everything. So you save quite a lot in terms of building your brand equity. So it's pros and cons. And in that situation is you may have different brands for different product categories. So that's the option B. But you also could have option C, where you will have different models. So sub-product category, where in fact you will focus in not so much the manufacturer brand or the overall family brand, but you will focus on the model. And then the model becomes the focus. So it's like you're selling a Camry or you're selling a Mustang, and people don't really need to know it's a Ford Mustang. It's just a Mustang. So in that situation, or a Corvette is another type of product that is very almost as a brand that is standalone because it has so much equity on the model. So that's obviously more expensive, but it creates more loyalty in the long run. If you intend to keep that brand existing, if it's a brand that you will create as a model for the next 6 years, 10 years, therefore maybe it's not a good choice. But if it's a brand that will have different generation and it will still exist in 50 years, it's very good to invest in those models. And then you just have multiple generations that keeps succeeding and becoming the new versions. Let's look at some brand decisions and sub-strategies that you may have. So the flankers is a branding strategy where you will look at having multiple brands in the same category. So it's you producing in one category and having multiple brands. Oftentimes you will do this in order to increase your market share. So instead of having just one brand, you'll have multiple, and therefore you'll get more distribution, you'll get more, let's say in a retail store, more shelf space, let's say on Amazon, more visibility. But at the end, you're going to sort of cannibalize yourself by having some of your brand compete with some of the other brands that you also own. But the idea with this is that you are blocking competitors to enter because you're multiplying the brands in this market, and therefore you make it harder for competitors to gain any market share because you sort of having a large market share overall, but very small market share maybe for each one of the brands. The cash cow is when you have a brand that you're not spending a lot of money and it just sells because it's a popular brand. Maybe it's a brand that is very local and it has a historical heritage, or maybe it's a brand that is inexpensive, or maybe it's a brand that is sort of the bare minimum and basic, and people that look for simple things, they will just buy this brand because it's reassuring. The low entry level is when you have a brand that will be cheaper, or because you don't want to damage your normal brand. Then you could have a higher end luxury brand because your normal brand won't be perceived as being luxurious enough, and therefore you need to develop this. So we did talk last week about downward stretch and upward stretch, and it's kind of the idea behind this is having those strategies where you take advantage of the fact that there's a market for more expensive products, and you don't want to let another competitor take this share, and you want to invest in it. So brands have identity, and this identity goes so far even to be perceived as a personality. So in a way, a brands work on their image to try to give a character, almost like a human face to their brand. And that's important because people either buy the brand that looks like them, or they may buy the brand of what they would like to look in order to improve their self-concept. So it's important to see that being a brand manager is not just keeping the meaning that you are supposed to keep, but it's also building this persona. It's this human element of the brand in order to make it even closer and more intimate to the consumers, because there is a strong element of emotions when people are buying products. And so that's the benefit of having a strong brand with human attachment. Now, the 5 classical strategies of branding are line extension. So line extension is using the same brand for your product, and you just keep the same product category, and you just keep the name, the brand name for all the different variations that you will create of the product. So you'll have a plain yogurt that you start as a Danone, and then you'll have the flavor. So it's a flavored Danone, and then you'll have a low sugar, and it's a low light Danone light, and you keep this name Danone. That's a line extension. The brand extension is when you actually, your brand, you keep the same brand, but you will be selling different product category. So the idea is that the brand is capable of overlapping multiple categories. The risk here is that your brand suddenly is overstretched, going into a category that is too far. So it will be like a Barbie making a tennis racket or something like this. It's maybe too far, and the perceived expertise and legitimacy for the brand has been overextended, and therefore it doesn't work. For none of the target, it works. So if you can extend and the brand still works, then it becomes a brand extension. And the benefit is that it doesn't cost you money to create a new brand. Multiple brand is when you want to get market share, and I mentioned it's kind of like flankers, the idea of having multiple brand in one market in order to gain as many sales and grow your sales, grow your market share, and sort of competitively protect by multiplying the brands that you have. The problem with this is that this can be done most of the time by big companies that essentially are trying to get a monopoly, and they have the financial resources to just keep multiplying the brand to a point that it looks even maybe ridiculous to have so many brands in the same market. But eventually they really deter the competitors to want to enter this market. The new brands is when you decide that this product is so different that you will have to have a new brand because the actual brand is not appropriate. Co-branding is when you'll be using 2 or 3 or multiple brands for the same product in order to get the benefits of the collaboration of those brands. So maybe you make I believe Ford has this, where they would have a Ford with a diesel engine, and so they will use the manufacturer of the diesel. There's a brand called Cummins diesel engine inside a pickup truck that would be made by some other famous brand of pickup truck. Or maybe you'll use Slim Fast as a brand of a diet product with Godiva chocolate. So then you have Godiva chocolate flavor, Slim Fast diet program. So this combination seems to be the best because Slim Fast would not be famous for making the best chocolate versus Godiva is famous for making the best chocolate, but Godiva would not be famous for making a diet product. And therefore, this combination seems to be the best of all worlds, the best chocolate with the best diet product. Therefore, there's more to this collaboration than the 2 parts being added. Suddenly it becomes more than 2 parts, becomes 3 or 4 parts because of the synergy of all of these brands. So to summarize, a product is everything within this generic concept of the goods, the services, the ideas, the people, the locations, the organizations. And it's important to remember that services have 4 characteristics and the product have 3 core level of product. The product can be classified in 4 groups. The product mix is decided in terms of the stretch, in terms of the width, the depth, and the length. Brand equity is an important concept that is measuring and building the weight and importance of a brand, and it's made of the first layer and the primary layer as the brand awareness. Do people know the association? What are the meanings, the word meanings, the adjective meanings, the image meanings, the imagery, what you imagine and what you abstract way conceptualize or you feel about a brand. And then the quality, the spectrum from lower, higher quality. And finally, the loyalty, which is very important for the trade leverage and also to keep selling new products, since you have this pocket of constant consumers that trust you and care and follow you. Then we have the different decisions in terms of using the brand from the manufacturer, a brand different than the manufacturer, a brand with submodels where the models essentially becomes somewhat more important than the brand itself, because you want to build this association and even emotion connected with the model. And then you have multiple brand strategies. There's the classical 5 main brand strategy, which is line extension, brand extension, the multiple brands, and the new brands, and finally the co-branding, which is the association of multiple brands to add sort of a bundle, sort of a combination effect that adds synergy to the product by having these brands working together. So this concludes the product mix. The new product development is one of the strategies. So what I'm going to do here is not just focus on the new product development strategy first, but to put the new product development inside the context of the strategies. So going back to the essential idea behind marketing is to satisfy customers. Who are your customers? What do they want? So you need to think about the strategy. The strategy is developed by looking at the opportunities. The tactics are developed looking at the strategies. To develop your tactics, you can develop tactics without thinking of strategies. You can. And that's what most of you have been doing since the beginning of the semester, because that's the traditional, most normal thing, is to think in terms of tactics. But the tactics are the small ideas. And so you need to think about the bigger idea, the strategy. So to really do a good job developing tactics, you need to develop strategies. But to develop strategies, you need to have opportunities. So really the idea is the opportunities will dictate your strategies, and your strategies will dictate your tactics, because it goes from bigger to smaller and to tiny, if you want. Okay. So for this, I used the Russian doll, and obviously this you may be saying, oh, but we've seen this before, and I know that you did, but it's very important to understand the pecking order of all of this in order to be able to make a marketing decision, which essentially is a basic business decision, which is what are we doing, why are we doing it, where are we going to go, and why are we going to do all of this, and what do we expect. So most businesses don't really do this, and sometimes you ask the business owners if they do that, and they say, yes, I do it. And then you say, where is it written? Oh, I don't need to write it. So where is it? Oh, it's here. It's in my head. It's right there in my head. All the things you say, it's in my head. The problem you find out is that the minute they start writing all of that, that's when they start finding that there's gaps and things that don't make any sense, or not too much sense, or much less sense. So it is good to understand this concept of the big to the small, and that it's even better to write it down, because as you write down, the business owner will realize that there's mistakes. And if they don't, by having someone else look at it, these people that are like a third party will even more so discover the mistakes. So is it logical? What's the logic? So the logic is the strategies are therefore those long-term, wider decisions. And those long-term, wider decisions, and I gave you a list, which I emailed you the list, but it's essentially, the basic strategies: market penetration, new product development, market development, and diversification. So when you look at these are the 4 strategies that you should all know, because they are very, very basic. So the market penetration is selling the same product to the same people. So what you do, you try to reduce the price, so now people are going to buy. You try to sell it in more places. You try to advertise more. You try to promote it, you try to give discounts, and all of these are going to momentarily increase your sales. You know, at the end of this week, we'll have Black Friday, and Black Friday is the market penetration strategy, which is mostly related to the fact that it's just more for less. And so people buy more of the product because they see the opportunity to save. Market development is going after a specific group of people and then going to after another group. You realize that there is too many men, or mostly men, who go to Wiener Schnitzel and not enough women. So I'm just making up. What could we do to get more women to go eat at Wiener Schnitzel? What changes should we do? So there's going to be many different things that you'll have to do in order to get maybe more women. I'm just guessing. Diversification, it would be Wiener Schnitzel saying, could we go and sell pizza maybe? You know, that's would be the start of diversification. More diversification than that will be Wiener Schnitzel starting to sell fish. More diversification than fish, it would be Wiener Schnitzel selling, I don't know, Christmas ornaments, right? So more diversification than this would be Wiener Schnitzel selling surgery, you know, brain surgery. So obviously, like, that's so far from what they're doing now. That's a very, very obvious diversification. So from pizza to brain surgery, there's many things in between, but they all be diversification. So what's left is the product development. So what is this? It's creating a new product, a totally new product from what happened before, the next generation of product. As you can see, probably the most common is market penetration, because that's the most common situation is trying to sell what you have. I would say the second most common is to create new products. So the new product development strategy is the only one that we will discuss separately, which is a chapter in every textbook. So if you want, every textbook discusses a bunch of strategies, a dozen of strategies, but every textbook in every languages from every publisher only discusses one separately, which is kind of amazing. And it's the one that is new product development. Why would they do that? Well, because it's very important to see that businesses, in order to grow, they have to come up with something new. Other strategies, and I go very quickly, is overall cost leadership is trying to sell for less. Focus is like sort of the market development is going after a specific group. Differentiation is trying to have a product which is focused on the product being very different, which outcome will be that you will go after very specific customers. And then middle of the road is when you have no explicit, very specific strategies, but just trying to be sort of universal. Other strategies again, and I'm insisting on this because I don't want you to tell me my strategy is to make Wiener Schnitzel with a new menu. There's not such a thing. I mean, I'm not saying a new menu is a strategy, or we want to get more influencers on TikTok. Our strategy is to get more influencers on TikTok. As you will see, I'm not going to mention this as a sub-strategy even. It's smaller than a sub-strategy. So it's not a strategy. It's not a sub-strategy. It's a detail. So you don't even see my hand. It's like it's not even in the spectrum of what you would call a strategy. It's definitely a tactic. So what would be the other one? Operational excellence, trying to be very organized. So for example, for Wiener Schnitzel, operational excellence is definitely a strategy that you would see in a fast food restaurant, because fast food restaurants, there's a concept of being fast and effective. So the level of effectiveness or perceived effectiveness may be a big factor for certain customers. There may be customers that says, you know, I'm willing to compromise on the quality of the product as long as it's delivered fast. So in terms of the hot dog, personally, I think the one thing that we discussed not too long ago, 2 weeks ago, is this idea of, we were talking about the donut, Krispy Kreme. And so I think Krispy Kreme has a operational excellence in the sense that there's a ritual. There's even a sort of a participation, a very limited participation, but at least as an audience of uh, for the production of the Krispy Kreme. And so I think it'd be interesting to think about a hot dog, maybe not all the hot dogs, but there would become certain hot dogs where people would see you produce the hot dog. So that way there would be something a little bit magic or very special about this hot dog that you couldn't, I mean, you could do yourself, but it would not be so easy to do because they would have a process that makes them more special. So operational excellence, I think that's a good strategy that could be used for Wiener Schnitzel. Customer intimacy, I think that would be also very interesting to see what could be done in because this brand is very unique. It's old, it's nostalgia, it's something that they really work on. The stores are also sort of unique. You know, they are not, they stand out. You look at all the burger places, I don't know that they're that different, but the Wiener Schnitzels are very different. Product leadership, obviously, that's another thing that they are very much mentioning in the quality of the meat that they use. So the quality of the meat seems to be giving them some product leadership. But at the end, I don't know if the hot dog in itself really has any product leadership. And maybe that's something that needs to be researched in some elements that need to be brought forward. Market leader. So in terms of hot dog, I think Wiener Schnitzel is one of the, maybe the number one, or at least I would think top 5 market leader when it comes to hot dogs. Market challenger is when you put yourself in challenging someone. So who could they challenge within the fast food? You know, should they challenge anyone within the fast food? Market follower. So that would not probably not be a good idea for Wiener Schnitzel because that's really who they are and their differences. But the market follower would be a strategy when you decide that you can't compete with the big corporations, brands, and therefore you're going to take a position where you at least for a while will be following what they do in order to learn and gain from the halo effects. So from the momentum of the big company, the advertising and promotions, cultivating interest within consumers, building the movement, that costs a lot of money and a lot of time, and you will be saving by not spending much on this, but just benefiting from all the work that they're doing. And then market niche is a company that really focus on a specific need and being the best as they can on that need. So market niche, Wiener Schnitzel in a way is a market niche, but not 100% because they offer also burgers. So what could they do to their burgers to become maybe a challenger? And what could they do of their burgers to be perceived by a group of customers to be very special burgers that they would get from Wiener Schnitzel? I don't believe that they do anything to really stand out when it comes to their burgers. So to summarize all of these strategies, and I sent you a specific list, and that's what's very important. I haven't seen too many iteration of the draft that I got from you about 3 weeks ago, but I sent you a list because that was one of the big problems is everyone was stating 3, 4 strategies, which were ideas. They were not actually strategies. So for them to be strategies, simply use one of the strategies that exists and relate that to the opportunity that you think are the most important. And then you have a connection between a strategic opportunity and a strategy, and not a tactic with some kind of opportunity where you emphasize the tactical element of the opportunity, which makes the opportunity look even smaller. So that's what's very important. It needs to be broad because you don't want to give a client a band-aid. You want to give a client a real sizable, significant, substantial solution and not just a tiny help. Consultants are not supposed to do this. The good consultants are supposed to provide very intense and sort of ambitious, provoking, disruptive solutions for their clients. And not every business wants to be disruptive. A lot of business may talk about it, but that the reality is they're scared to be disruptive. And that situation is when you're a market follower, maybe a market challenger, and nothing more than this. And that's okay. But I would not, I don't think, I'm pretty sure that I don't think Wiener Schnitzel wants to be a follower. So you have the opportunity to come up with something much more challenging. Again, make sure and when you read this paper, we have this sense of understanding is what's the small ID and what's the big ID. And you talk to the big ID and all the small ID that goes inside. At the end of your paper, the last page, the last 2 pages, this is where you talk about the marketing mix recommendation, your final suggestions, and you have bullet points that talks about the product suggestion, the promotion suggestions, and all this. And there you can have you can propose things that are very tactical and just ideas and smaller, and they don't have to be strategic, and that's okay. But in the strategic section, just make sure that it's very clearly strategies. Now, this maybe won't be understood by everyone, but it's 100% the same as what I've proposed before. But instead of putting bullet points and words, I propose it as a triangle, as a visual, instead of being verbalizer, words trying to explain to you what it is, this one is a visualizer. It's maybe for certain students, so there's maybe 10, 15% of the students that don't understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about strategies versus tactics. So what I try to do is to show that there's a pecking order, there's a ranking, there's the big concepts, the high-level strategies, which are just to use the basic 4, market penetration, new product development, market development, diversification. And then you have the low-level strategies, the strategies which are within the P's, P of product, price, place, and promotion. In fact, after this class, all we'll have left presenting is price, place, and promotion, these 3 concepts of 3 dimensions of the marketing mix, because we have finished already the product mix. What's important when you think about growing a business is to understand that growth is appears from the fact that you have increasing sales. So increasing sales is usually supported by more successful products. So you need to come up with more successful products. But to come up with more successful products, there's one thing, which is luck, but that's 1% of the time. And 99% of the time is creating new products. So then you say, okay, so the game is luck, or the more new products you create, the more lucky you get. Yes. So luck, 1%, 99% new products. So therefore, you're going to take the 99%. Then you're going to say, let's produce as many new products as possible. So it's 365 days. Let's produce one every day. The problem is producing new products is expensive. So then you have to balance between producing one a year, which is too little, and producing 365. How much could you, how much can you afford to produce? How many opportunities have you identified? And also it depends, different markets, different industries require more introduction of new products. If you're in the pharmaceutical industry, you get 20 years of protection for the new product that you're launching. So the product that you launched before, that are past 20 years, are now becoming generic, which means they will be produced by a company and possibly in a country which can produce it for much cheaper than you by just copying your product, copying the formula and producing it for much cheaper. So therefore your product suddenly, your brand suddenly disappears like snow in the sun, because you have no more protection, legal protection from the patent after 20 years for the pharmaceutical products. So at that moment, you have to produce a new medicine which is going to be giving protection for 20 years. The reality is it's irrelevant if this new medicine is better than the old medicine. It should be, but ethically it should be. But in reality, the producer of pharmaceutical products would like to make it better, but most of the time they just make it just good enough with the protection. And so with the protection, what they do is they eventually promote this product way more than the one that they don't produce anymore. And eventually the patients will be, and the doctors will be getting the new variation, which is much more expensive because it's only produced by one company since that one has the patent, and everybody else cannot produce it. So there's, again, another 20 years where you can make a lot of money. And then what you do is you have pharmaceutical industry or any other industry is you try to have multiple products that you launch. So you can have a rule of thumb is if I launch 2 products, there will be one that will work and one that won't work. So therefore, I always launch 2 products in hope that one works. Then you may want to increase your percentage. Instead of 50-50, then you say I'll launch 3. So 3, suddenly now I get 80% chance that out of 3 I have 1 success. Or I'll do 4. With 4 I have 90% chance. With 5 I have 98% chance. But not too many businesses can launch 5 new products to get this 90% or whatever number I'm just making up as a likelihood of success. So launching new products is a necessity to ensure the survival of a business and to ensure the longevity of the business, because you have competitors. First, people get tired of your products, so you have to launch new products. And your competitors will try to beat your product, so therefore you have to keep competing by having, again, a new product in order to stay afloat. The objective is to grow the business by having multiple products that take the chain of success for your company and build it. So products go through 4 stages within this life to death cycle, and this is called the product life cycle. The first stage, I would call the stage which is not on this graph, is the stage 0, which is the stage of preparation, of development. The second stage, when it's developed, is the introduction. The third stage is the growth, and then it's the maturity, and eventually it's the decline. And then there may be a 6th stage, the stage, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the stage 5, which will be the removal, the phasing out of the product. So what's important here is to know that each one of these stages have objectives. Each one of these stages have different gain. Each one of these stages have different actions that you can have in terms of promotion, in terms of adjustment of the product, in terms of pricing of the product. And so the idea is that your sales need to keep going up, and you need to keep maintaining your profits by having products that have the largest profit margin as possible, which eventually decrease because you have more and more competitors and less customers. So consumers go through these stages, and we saw it when we were talking about the consumer behavior. Go through different stages, which is a bell curve from finding out about the product to adopting the product, then influencing other people, seeing that you are buying this product and using this product, to eventually reaching a group of people that will say, oh, I want it too. And this early majority is early adopters, and early majority are the most important. The most important is not the innovator. The most important is the early adopters out of the 5 groups. The momentum comes from the early adopters, because once you get to the early adopters, you have like close to 20% of the people that consume, and this 20% is what really gives the impetus, the incentive for the rest of the population to want to buy the product. And then you get to the 80% rest of the population. The innovators are necessary. The innovators are like the spark for a fire. The most important is when you start having this fire and then grow the fire. I don't know if you ever went to camping or picnicking and you are in a place that is sort of humid And it's not easy to start a fire. And sometimes it feels impossible because you have to reach a point of heat and dryness and flame in order to have enough heat in order to make everything consume and be flammable around it. But the spark is necessary, but the spark doesn't create that much heat and is only very responsible to a small number of the success of the adapter category. So when you launch a new product, your objective is to get as quickly as possible to the early adopters, and you need to understand who are the innovators that will influence as quickly as possible the early adopters and get enough momentum from the early adopters to then reach the rest of the population. Not all the products go through all the phases. There are some products that go through cycles and they just get revived. And they essentially don't die. They just get new generation, remodeling, redesigning in order to keep on growing. So that's what's very important to see within the product life cycle is all the products you have on this image are products that did not go through the declining and phasing out stage, but they just get rejuvenated in order to keep on going, maybe to another growth. So they go introduction 10 years ago, 60 years ago, and then they go into growth, maturity, and then they start maybe declining. And there is another version that comes and is being reintroduced, but it's not a full reintroduction because people already know what it is. And you just talk about the newness, the innovation of the known product and what it would do for people and the incentives for them to reach a certain threshold where they feel that they need the new version of the iPhone 10. You need the iPhone 14. Why would I need it? Is because there's just enough changes that makes it desirable. But if you had the iPhone 7, maybe you don't need as many benefits than the 14 will be offering from the same 7 to the 14 because there's so many changes already, so many variations already that the consumer that the 7 missed by not buying the 10, 11, 12, while the 14 still exists. So different new products bring different challenges. The first challenge is when you introduce is not so much to sell a lot of this product, but it's to get a lot of people to know about the product and want to buy it, try it, look at it, and and start consuming the product in order to get the product to go into the growth stage where suddenly there's a significant number of people who want to buy the product. In that situation here is you maximize the share and grow the market. So in that situation is you want to sell as many products as possible. And you want to just grow the market. And it's different than the maturity stage, because in the maturity stage, you will be making less margin. So the margin, usually the margin the highest will be in the introduction. Then in the growth stage, it'll be a little bit less margin. So let's say you make 50% margin, just as a big number. When you introduce the product, so the product is very expensive, you don't have too many competitors, and you make 50%. Then you start going in growth stage, the second stage, and you start having some competitors, but many more consumers, and now you're making 40%, 35%. Then at the end of the growth stage, now you're making 25%, but now you're starting to move into the maturity stage, and now it goes 25, 24, 20%. And in the maturity stage, you may be making 18%, the margin, the profit margin, but you'll be selling so many more products that your profit in itself will be bigger because the introduction, you sell 500 products. In the growth, you sell 50,000 products. And in the maturity, is you sell 50 million products. So it's better to make 19% margin when you sell 50 million products than making 50% margin when you sell 500 products, obviously. So the more you lower the price, the more people will start buying it, and the more you stay competitive, and the more you defend your market share. And that's what you're trying to do, is gain as much market share as possible, sell as many large quantity of products as possible. And as you have more and more competitors, you reduce your price and you reduce your margin, but it's way compensated by the quantity of product that you sell, that you actually have a bigger profit in terms of volume of dollar than in terms of the percentage that you gain from each product. In the declining stage, is what you do is you try to reduce your costs as much as possible, because you don't want to have a lower margin because less people buy and they're looking for a cheaper product, and also because you're spending too much money in order to sell this product. So you try to reduce how much it costs you to sell this product, and eventually you start thinking about phasing it out because it's not really worth anymore the effort of trying to sell it, because of the storage, because of the staff resources that you will have to allocate in order to sell this product. Then you decide that it's better to take your resources and reinvest it into the introduction of the new products. So this product life cycle is very logical. It sort of is explained by anything that we see in nature, and it's just a balance, and it's just a question of the rationale of being conscious about the number that grow is the focus, and the saving, still making as much profit margin as possible, but knowing that it's normal, but this will get reduced. But at the same time, the number will offset your loss per product by being a gain per the overall sales money that you'll be making. So the new product development is made into 8 stages. So the first stage of the product development is to generate some ideas. So this stage consists in trying to collect ideas from the consumers. The first way of collecting from the consumers is by asking them, what they would want. Asking certain consumers, not all the consumers will have the best ideas. The one that use it the most, the one that use it for a long time, the one that used your brands for a long time and have experience of the past products, the one consumers that are also the next generation of consumers, so you can sort of get ideas not from the people that are going to be using it less and less now, but the one that will be haven't been using it that much, but will be using it more and more in the future. So you want to be directing towards these. You want to ask your salespeople as well the ideas of what they think would be better next. You want to also look at your competitors, what new ideas they may have. You want to come up with some new ideas from your staff in general. You want to also go and look at the marketplace, the general trends. So it's sort of, you've done a lot of this since the beginning of this class by doing brainstorming on the trends. So it's macro and micro environment, the consumers versus the trends, the political changes. So it's sort of doing the SWOT of everything that you see that will impact the generation of your products and maybe the future generation that you need to create. Then the ID screening is the larger your ID generation, the better. So limiting yourself in the ID generation is not a good idea. The broader, even the ID generation that may seem a little bit far-fetched, you don't want to sort of limit yourself in the ID generation, because you want to give the opportunity to the ID screening, the second stage, to be able to look at as much as possible. So that's actually one of the amazing elements of this class from a research perspective, because the fact that there's 165 students looking at Wiener Schnitzel is a huge ID generation that most businesses are not capable of having. And even large businesses don't really have this capacity. That's why there are business consulting competitions where the university compete against each other. And in fact, the chief marketing officer of Wiener Schnitzel told me that he had participated in many university marketing competition in order to get ideas, and that they were fantastic every time because the students are very curious and they do amazing ID generation and then ID screening as well by looking at what they think would be the best. So businesses are good at that, but I would say much better than most businesses when it comes to doing these. The concept development and testing is when you start maybe creating a 3D or you're trying to create mock-up, and this mock-up, then you give it to, again, a focus group, an interview. Maybe you do a Wiener Schnitzel one store, which will have this new menu, and you just test it and see how it sounds. Maybe you test it from an experimental perspective, not for real, but just with some customers who are sort of paid to be researched on. Then the marketing strategies, that's when you start designing what should happen in terms of the pricing, in terms of where should it be sold, which distribution, what price, what communication, who is the target, and what do they want, where do they live. So you really start thinking about the strategy behind all of this and the tactics and the implementation, not just the strategy. Then the business analysis at that time is you start thinking in terms of the costs of implementing all of this, the cost of producing it, how long is it going to take to get your return on investment? Because it's going to be production costs, it's going to be salary costs, investment costs, and all this. Then the product development is when you actually really finalize the production and you start making the product. And some businesses, you have the potential to make slight different variation. And this is when you have another opportunity to do a test marketing, where you say, now let's sell or let's do what we plan to do, not in all the Wiener Schnitzel, but just in one store, or maybe in just one city, or just in one state, or just in one day everywhere, on many places. And at that time, you see how successful it was to make some adjustments and then do a full launch. And the full launch is the full commercialization of the product, where you will really put it everywhere in the market. And you've done enough study and due diligence that you have anticipated what's going to happen. All right, so this is important. It's important because you have to know it, those stages, because I would have multiple questions on the new product development, probably 3 questions in the final exam. It's also important because it's most likely that you'll have at least one new product development strategy inside your report. Is it even possible that 4 of your strategy that you will recommend will be new product development? It's possible. It does. The strategy that you recommend doesn't have to be one of each. So in your paper, I will not give you a better grade if you have one market penetration, one product development, one market development, one diversification. It doesn't make it better if you have one of each. It doesn't make it better if you have 4 market penetration. It's unlikely that you'll have 4 market penetration. It's more likely that you'll have 4 product development, because you could have one product development that has to do with the menu, another product development that has to do with the menu, another product development that has to do with the services, application, ordering, taking care of the order, delivering, and all this. That could be one. So it's possible that you have multiple product development. And yes, what the most common is probably 3 product development, 1 market development. Even to make it easier, I would say you have 1 market penetration, one market development, and two product development. And that sounds like the sort of the standard, the easiest way to design a strategy for Wiener Schnitzel, because you're probably going to do some changes to the menu and to the food, and you're going to probably talk about things in order to increase their sales. That's market penetration. And maybe you're going to discuss another strategy which has to do with a specific group of customers they're not doing very well, and that's market development. Bingo. I gave you the four sort of 101 no-brainer of maybe what could be done for Wiener Schnitzel. Could you do better than that by looking at the other strategies and see if there's other ones that would sort of apply that you could be using, looking at the long list of strategies that I gave you and not try to do the minimum obvious standard definition like the one I just did before, 2 NPD, 1 penetration, and 1 market development. Yes, you can. So in business, you just need to know all of these exist, and then you just adapt to all of these changes.